magazine called MyMedicalAffairs.com, and it's my pleasure to be invited here to moderate the next panel by Dario and the good team at Next. And the next panel topic is on coaching, often a sub-thought and a sub-consideration, but so important and vital to any organisational success. And folks, you're all in luck, because you have two of the most foremost thought leaders on the topic in our industry, I believe, and they're also two of my favourite people in the industry. And leading off, I think we'll just like to introduce Michelle Bridenbaker, who's the Global Lead for Medical Information and Communications and multi-channel strategy at Idorsia Pharmaceuticals, and just because she's not busy enough, she just got her MBA. So congratulations, and we're very lucky to have you here.
Thank you.
And following on is Marcus West, who's the founder and the CEO of the 60 Seconds Coaching and Development app. Marcus has over 30 years of experience in the coaching space, and his history involves coaching some of the world's most famous sporting identities, and even prime ministers, who are almost as important. And so let's, without any further ado, let's just jump right in. So in my experience, guys, particularly in, I might say, in medical affairs, coaching and soft skills are often an afterthought and not considered a priority. So to try and get coaching to really catch fire in an organisation, would you say mindset is a more crucial component?
Yeah, I'll start with that. I think from my perspective it is. And I think when I was going to tackle this topic, I decided I'm going to reach out to my network and see what kind of is going on out there. And with coaching and development and this mindset, there's actually 3 buckets. And if we go to the earlier analogy of the good, the bad, and the ugly, this is kind of the buckets we have.
Which one am I, by the way?
I would say you're probably in the good. But I would say the ugly is where we start. And this is the saddest condition. It's that coaching's not valued, and there's no time to do it. And this is a reality that people actually deal with. If we look at kind of what is the bad, or I would say sad, is that it's valued and that managers want to do this, but in fact they don't have the time or the full buy-in to do it. And then last, which I think is, in my opinion, it's not only the good, but it's the best, is that not only is coaching and the mindset valued, but it's actually got a commitment and we make time to do this. I think it's very clear that this is not optional. This needs to be in our DNA as people managers, and we really have to make sure that we're focused on this and make this our mindset. We have to make time for this, and we have to look at this as an opportunity for everybody in our organization and have a positive mindset about coaching, because often it's not looked as positive, it's a remediation. So thinking of it with a positive mind frame, I think is really important.
Marcus.
Yeah, no, I believe that you've got to go to self-interest, really. Famous Prime Minister of Australia said that always back the horse called self-interest, because it'll always win. And so for us, we tend to work with leadership teams, and then with managers, and then with field teams. And so we really have to spend quite some time getting into, what is the benefit for you? How is this going to deliver you value? And I think probably just one example of that is working with field teams. And it's come down to, and this is often where younger people are, and younger people expect coaching and development. It's not something that is a nice to have, it's a must have. And I think organisations are slowly opening their eyes to that. But I think for them, we always say, this is an investment in you professionally. Yes, you are talking about this particular product that is owned by company X. However, the skills that you develop over time of collaboration, of good communication skills, of interacting with other professionals in a way that is authoritative, those skills will be with you forever.
That's interesting. I wanted to touch briefly on having a message resonate in the digital or social media age, and I was a bit reluctant to use this quote, but I will. The mischievous Steve Bannon was once quoted as saying that in order to cloud the democratic message and their process, you have to use social media to flood the marketplace with shite. Now, the pharma industry is also guilty of flooding the market with a lot of noise, albeit with much more decent and honourable intentions, but it's noise all the same. So would you have any advice on how companies and teams get a message to stick in this climate where there's so much out there?
Well, I think when I heard the Google presentation, I think it was really interesting to hear that 50% of the patients don't retain what they heard, right? This is a clear need for us to meet the customer. Also, a doctor has 17 minutes with the patient, so they know they're not doing the best that they can. And we also know they don't have a lot of time to do anything else. So from my perspective, I think where we come in is that we need to be really tight in the communications that we actually provide them. We need to be good at storytelling. We need to be able, as an MSL, to get the doctor from point A to B, to help our patients through their treatment. And also, we have to also think a lot about the engagement and technology. I think this was mentioned earlier. We want it to be accessible and not what we want to do, but what actually is needed by the customer, whether it's a patient or a healthcare professional. And the good news is all of these things that we do within our group, we need to upskill everybody because it's always changing and it's something that's very coachable, in fact.
Yeah, I think storytelling is absolutely vital. I mean, if you think in a social or familial context, really the only way that we communicate is through stories. You know, we sit down for dinner, we tell stories about things. And I think sometimes in a work context, PowerPoint probably had some input into this, but it suddenly got more, let's move through information. So I think if we can tell a story somewhere in there, then that's going to be useful. But also stories have to be different shapes and sizes. And one famous TV executive producer that I worked with in Australia, he would always tell his TV reporters, there are three things that your news package needs to be: tight, right, and bright.
It's a good rule there. If you had that on the slide, there'd be a lot of photographs, I think. So it sounds like the key important element is soft skills. So I just want to maybe hear what the importance that should be placed on soft skills within an organisation and how you would suggest that.
Yeah, I mean, I manage people from all different levels, so associate level all the way to directors and above. And I think for me, a lot of the time I spend is on presenting skills, like both for internal communication, managing upwards to be able to really help people understand what we do from the lowest level to the highest. I think as well on the MSL level, which I'll let Marcus do because he's much better with this, is what the MSL does and the presentation skills. This is also really important from a soft skills perspective. And I think the other area that I really like to highlight, it's something that I'm very passionate about, is I have call centers for patient support programs, for MedInfo centers, and we have to spend a lot of time coaching. This is the face of our company. We cannot let these people go without being really good at what they do and being good at soft skills. So we spend a lot of time doing this, and I think we've used technology like sentiment analysis, sentiment analysis to help us with being able to actually tell what the interaction from the customer perspective is and how our team is pivoting to this. So it's soft skills that we are able to coach then, and we have tangible feedback, neutral feedback about how the customer left the conversation after they interacted with our team, and we can then concretely be able to provide those really important coaching points.
Yeah, soft skills for me are, absolutely critical. Having worked with a lot of politicians over many years, the way that a person is perceived, the package, if you like, this is what we as human beings do when we meet one another. We sum people up based on what they look like, how they move, what their body language says about them, and then when they speak, what their voice is like, and lastly, the stories that they tell. So ask yourself the question, for the doctors that you're meeting or the professionals that you work with, what do you imagine they would have in their mind in terms of one or two adjectives to describe what you're like? And do the stories you tell, does your voice and does your body language and the way that you carry yourself line up with that?
I find it interesting. Most of the time when we're looking at investing or implementing a new process, we're thinking about the customer, i.e. the patient or the clinician, not so much the internal stakeholders that will also benefit by investing in this type of process. So the theory is great. It's all well and good, and it's wonderful to talk about that. But let's maybe touch on and explore some real-world examples that you both may have to share with the audience, and what's worked well and why. Why has it worked? Michelle?
I think for me, it's about actually living and breathing this mentality. I think that a lot of times we say we're going to coach, have a good environment, and it has to start from the top. And the example I actually want to really talk about is not only that I share with my teams a lot of my coaching needs and things that I know I'm working on, but I also obviously have honest discussions with them. I say to them when I meet with them, we're going to ask a lot of you in our goal setting and the objectives we set, but you need to get something from us in some ways. And I always say that this coaching, this mentoring development, this is something that when I talk to my team, I say, this is something you get to take away. This is for you. You give us a lot, we want to take a lot from you. So here's your development and here's your ability to grow. And I think my favorite example, even in my own business with my own managers, really living and walking this walk, is that my manager didn't understand AI. He's a very traditional medical affairs guy, and he's like, I don't understand anything you're doing. He goes, I think it's brilliant, but I want to know the nuts and bolts. And he was vulnerable, and he said, I'm willing, I need to learn something here. I have a gap. So what he really showed to our organization is, not only does he allow us to learn, but he knows that he can learn from us. And I don't know a better example.
That's a fantastic example. I think we're all familiar with the opposite
Yeah.
on times as well of people not conceding that they're not up to speed. So I was also invited by Michelle and Marcus to share an example of good coaching practice, and I reflected back on my earliest days of employment after university as a primary care sales rep. And I noticed that the way that my manager interacted with me was quite different for how he interacted with, say, somebody else. And when I say that, whenever he wanted to get me to work in a particular fashion or address some sort of behaviour or improve an area, he'd give me basically an absolute bollocking and figured out that that was how I'd respond better. If it was just like, hey, maybe you should try this, and we're thinking about this, I'd just kind of, well, that doesn't sound very important. But it was when I got a rocket put up me, well, then I really took notice and got the job done. And I noticed that wasn't the case that he employed with others who probably would have quit if they were spoken to in that sort of fashion. And it's probably a reflection on the way that I was brought up, I'm not sure. But it wasn't until I was a parent where I realised that, people, and having children, you think everyone's born kind of the same. No, people are born inherently different from each other. So having that skill to recognise the differences in the personalities that you're working with is really quite vital to get the most out of them from a coaching perspective.
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great point. It's just good coaching, isn't it, really? Understanding your audience and how to get from A to B in terms of developing somebody. I just wanted to make just a few short comments about field teams, because that's where we do quite a lot of our work. For me, I think the big change has been delivered in the last 10 years with technology, with the ability to more effectively measure the performance of field teams. And our area of interest is obviously around communication skills and communications models and how effectively they're done. And now the fact that you can actually line that up with your coaching forms so that you have the ability to create coaching scenarios which are on demand. You can do them whenever you want. You've got your coach sort of in your pocket. Open up the app, away you go. And it's this kind of, I want to practice the way that I'm doing this in my own time. But the way that we're going to practice is we're going to do it in a completely transparent manner. Now, I think if I might just consider the area of sales for a moment, that has always been this kind of mystical thing where certain people were just awesome and other people weren't so good, and we didn't really ever understand why. And maybe once a year we'd have some external sales trainer come in. Well, those days are over now. We don't practice on the doctor anymore. We now have a context where we can practice in a full 360-degree mode all the time, incrementally, and genuinely embrace continuous learning. Everything that we do now is measured. You can't even, walk down the street without being congratulated for having done X number of steps. So, I think the way that we embrace that, in a positive way to empower people, that's the key thing. Rather than saying this is a way that we're going to measure your performance, it becomes a way of saying, here are all the answers. Now we need to get all of you delivering consistently to those performance goals that are right there in front of you. It's like giving the student the answers before they sit the exam. And that process we've found has really empowered teams, particularly younger people who have a real hunger and appetite for self-directed learning.
So we're approaching the final straight here, talking about steps and things like that. Let's talk about the outcomes. So what does it mean? What are we trying to achieve with good coaching? What does success look like? Michelle.
Yeah, I think today it was very clear. Everyone kept saying we're always going to be in states of transformation, or we're managing change. We're going to have technology flying at us faster than we can ever imagine. It's changing. I mean, ChatGPT's had how many versions this year? Yeah. It's how do you keep up with this? The environment itself is extremely complex for many of our disease states. So we have to have a coaching culture. We have so much to teach our people, and they have so much to learn. I don't know if anybody in this room is at perfection yet. I'm not definitely there. So the fact of the matter is we are going to have this environment where we do this. And I personally work in areas with very high turnover, call centers, MedInfo, PV. If you don't do this, you will have less job satisfaction from your people. You will have troubles with staff retention. And at the end of the day, the only way you're going to maximize the teams, especially because my teams tend to be very small, is I want a high-performing team. And guess what? They need to be satisfied, they need to be coached well, and they need to really be getting the information they need to do the best job possible. So for me, that's really what I would say is my conclusion on that.
Yeah, staff retention is hugely important. Marcus?
Yeah, well, that's right. I mean, people do leave jobs at the drop of a hat, and the recruiting industry is absolutely huge, as we all know. Yeah, look, I mean, I working with people is difficult just because people can be difficult and a bit hard to please sometimes, and so really pulling all the levers of trying to get people engaged is enormously difficult. Our belief is that effective coaching is going to ensure that people are happier and more content. And if people are happier and more content, and they feel like they're being nurtured and they're developed and they're going on a journey, then to me, that again, to just go back to the first comment that I made about self-interest, that's what we've got to be able. Too often we're thinking, what's the business outcome? What do I need to do? What do I need to get done? Tick the box for each of the jobs that I need to do, rather than thinking, hang on a minute, if I want this person to be able to do X and Y, I really need to be able to engage them properly and think about it from their perspective. And that's what coaching's about, right? It's about asking questions and listening and drawing a response, rather than just, this is what we need done, do A, B, and C, see you on Friday. That's not enough. People want more. People want to grow. And a great way to deliver that is through coaching.
Well put, Marcus. Well, we did have time for Q&A, but I notice we're running over considerably. So if you want to learn more about coaching and meet, I recommend you, Marcus and Michelle will be at the bar later on this evening, and also on LinkedIn to answer all of your questions.
We have a couple of minutes.
Couple of minutes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay, but I just thought overall we're running behind. I've learned a long time ago not to stand between an audience and a reception. So if you have any questions, hit them up. Let's please join me in thanking Marcus and Michelle for their insights on this extremely important topic.
You're so conscientious.